See, we working on his brow chakra. We just sit back at the crown chakra.
Just been revoked.
Welcome once again to Waxing the Porpoise. We are on episode 18 now, where we are discussing the disappearance of Asha Degree. You got your host G Baby, and as always, the usual suspect Steve. How are you, friend?
Hello. Good. How are you?
Doing well. Doing good. Better now. I totally forgot this part of Wedding Singer. We just rewatched that a couple nights ago. The part where...
Oh yeah, I've seen it 10,000 times. Hit me.
Yeah. The fucking Steve Buscemi at the beginning. He's like making a fool, and Sandler tries to like, okay, yeah, the best man,
Yeah.
everyone. He's like, yeah, best man, better man.
Better
Yeah.
man.
Dude, that part got me. It's
Remember
been
that time
years since
in
I
Puerto
seen
Rico, we picked up those two, well, I guess they were prostitutes, but I don't remember paying. Yeah, his character in that is so good. And when he sees George,
Yes.
like, playing the guitar,
And
he's like, ooh, I like her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there was a
singing
bunch
at
of
the
parts.
wedding at the end. It's so good.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts. The only thing I think I remembered from it in the past 10 years was Kenyon always doing that. They were cones.
They were, yeah.
Yeah. Anywho,
Great film. If you haven't seen it, watch it.
yeah, Wedding Singer is a banger. I think that's anything beyond that. The Sandman really started slipping.
I don't know. I think that might be an argument for a different day. And now he's in this weird like renaissance where it's like he's like a serious actor.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
I love when he's like, oh, I'm gonna go. How about an Alabama Slammer? He's like, meet you at the bar. I gotta piss first. And he's like, yeah, have a few drinks and then drive home.
Yeah. I don't know. I rewatched Big Daddy recently, and it wasn't as good as I remembered, but I still give it a pass. But I watched Mr. Deeds for the first time. I'd never seen it. I'd completely missed that one. Watched that for the first time, and that was pretty rough sledding, man. I was like, this is awful. There's maybe one or two scenes, and really, I really only like John Turturro, the butler guy. He was the only thing I was hanging on to in that film.
What about the part where they fake the purse snatching and he chases him down and beats the shit out of that guy?
Yeah. And he like rolls out the Old Spice. He's like, oh, goddamn Old Spice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi's great in that one, and Big Daddy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's awesome in that. Give you crew cut, mister.
Yeah, don't even get me started.
Yeah, I know. So what's new in your neighborhood? Anything, or you just want to get right down to the nitty gritty?
Nothing too noteworthy. Figure we could just get right into it.
Okay. Oh, by the way, I gotta mention
I do have one. It didn't really work out last week, but I do have a phrase written down that's going to be like the autistic phrase that pays, that we'll see if you can get through the entire episode without saying it.
Oh, okay. I like that heading. I don't know how PC it is, but we'll fuck it. So this isn't related to colloquial corners.
Well, it's not like the N-word or something. I think you'll be able to avoid saying it.
That's true. I could see someone calling us like ableist or some fucking thing, but okay. I'm looking forward to that too. Oh yeah, shout out to first of the season pumpkin beer. This one's especially good as far as pumpkin beer go. It's Pumpkin.
It better be if it's called Pumpkin.
Yeah, this is Southern Tier Brewing. I think they're in New York, but advertises pumpkin pie in a glass, and it.
How fun! What's
close.
The alcohol percentage in that?
8.6, and it is smooth.
Damn.
It's
wow.
a good. Yeah, you have two of them, and you're fucking zooted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a tasty beverage.
That's higher than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be like a weak little 4 or 5%.
It's the easiest 8.6 I've ever had, I'll tell you that. Like, if you stack it up to the only other one I can think that high that I've had is, like, Bigfoot. the Sierra Nevada, and that shit's like fucking cough medicine. I think it's only like 8.3, or maybe it's a touch higher. Maybe it's like 9.1. But either way, I think it's terrible. Whereas this is like easy drinking. So, anyhow,
Nice.
yeah. Shout out to Pumpkin. Check it out. I like pumpkin beer, so I always like to try a new one every year. A couple of years ago, I tried one where it's like, I can't remember the brand, but they age the beer in like Kentucky bourbon barrels. So it's bourbon barrel pumpkin beer. That one's very tasty too. I think it's like Kentucky something, and they only sell them in like 4-packs, and like $17 for a 4-pack. So it's kind of just like a treat yourself moment. But anywho, okay. So all right, yeah, let's get into this thing. So yeah, we're talking about. I heard a bunch of people say it, and I'm saying it, Asha.
That's how I heard it as well. I saw like a pronunciation thing.
Yeah.
And then I also watched a little 20-minute video that the FBI put out, and they said Asha as well.
Okay, cool.
So I'm gonna go with that.
Every time I see it and I think it right before I'm about to say it, I want to say Asha so bad. It just
same here for some reason.
Natural. Like that's the way I should say it. So anyway, so Asha Degree, she went missing. We're in North Carolina. This is in a town called Shelby, North Carolina. Not quite a suburb. I guess you could classify it as that. It looks about to be 20-ish minutes west, as the crow flies, southwest of Charlotte. And I don't know what it was in the year 2000, but it says it's like 20,000 people. So not podunk, but and it's close enough to Charlotte, so we're not like out in the middle of nowhere here. But so this went down in the year 2000. Like I said, she disappeared on Valentine's Day, February 14th. She came from a strong Christian upbringing. Mother Aquila and father Harold, and she had a brother O'Brien, not Bryant. I thought it was Bryant a couple times, but
I like that for a first name.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. It reminded me there's an establishment out here called O'Charlie's, like an Irish O'Charlie's with the little apostrophe. I think there's something in the South too called like Beef O'Brady's that is really a divisive place. But have you ever heard of Beef O'Brady's?
No, doesn't ring a bell at all.
Okay, yeah, it's a new one on me too. Anywho, yeah.
I went to with some of our old mutual coworkers. We went to this restaurant when we were on a work trip years ago. That's when the infamous tried to pass the fake ID, and it's like, I'll have water on that on that trip. This restaurant was an abomination. It was a fusion of Irish pub and Mexican food.
Oh.
From what I remember, and there was, I think, 5 or 6 of us, and this was after a night of like some heavy drinking, and so the next day we all just felt like shit, and so we went out to lunch to this place, and every single thing we got there was like subsequently the worst food any of us had ever seen, like
bangers and mashed fajitas.
Oh god, yeah, imagine that, but just worse, like worse than anything you can imagine. And like, I think each of us had taken maybe 2 bites of all of our food, and the waitress came over and was just like, "Are you guys okay?" And we're just looking at the food like, yeah.
Like, we're fine. I think the issue lies.
And we were
elsewhere.
Probably all just like sweating. I mean, she probably knew the deal. Like, yeah, our food is dog shit, but.
Yeah, that does not sound like a conducive.
Oh my god! Yeah, what synergy. A horrible combo. And I think I want to say I looked it up not too long ago, and shockingly, they're no longer in business. But yeah, so back to young Miss Degree. I definitely got the impression from reading about her family that, I don't know if sheltered is the right word, but they were definitely like a pretty conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of insulated was the word that I saw repeated a few different places from the outside world. And yeah, like you said, their life centered seemed to just center around like family, church, and school, and that's about it. I saw a quote from the mom in a 2013 interview, and she said every time you turned on the TV, there was some pedophile who'd lured somebody's child away via the internet, so they didn't even have a computer in their house, which kind of gives you an idea of what her mindset is.
Right.
And it sucks because it sucks when you see people who are somewhat paranoid about things when it comes to fruition, because then it totally justifies all of their what may or may not have been reasonable or unreasonable.
And it's kind of scary
Fear
from the
leading up to
outside.
it.
It's kind of scary from the outside looking in too, because it's like, fuck, they did everything right.
Yeah.
On surface level, and that still happened. It's like, that was one of the things that I mean, obviously the first thing I thought about having kids, because I have kids, I thought about it, and it's like, fuck, they did everything right. You could call someone insulated or sheltering, or maybe being a little too overprotective, but I mean, I get it. I get that instinct, and it is scary nonetheless, though, to think like they did all those things, and then she vanishes off the face of the earth for 30, 25 years. Like, I did see that, and I thought it was weird, but I guess for some of the younger listeners too, it's not super weird though, because like the year 2000, the internet's only like, the way we think about it today, roughly, was only like 3 or 4 years old, maybe 5.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I usually think about 96 is when it sort of entered my world.
Right. And then even in the year 2000, I mean, it wasn't anywhere as ubiquitous as it is today. I think it wasn't probably until like 2007 to 2010 where it's like, yeah, everyone's got a computer, everyone's got fucking internet. Like, it's like
smartphone.
Yeah, like everyone has a fucking microwave.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the year 2000, I can still see that, especially with like a highly religious family. But yeah, it drives home the point that they kept to their community, like hyper local church, God family education was their main tenet. So I didn't see anything too, like at least before the disappearance, about like any evidence of trouble, like, or
No,
like
I
the
didn't
parents
either.
being too overbearing. They just like
No,
really
not at
really
all.
cared. So that's the kind of family dynamic we're looking at with the Degrees. I didn't mean to step on. Where were you going with that next?
Oh no,
Did
I
you
was
want
just
to
gonna
get into the
say,
day?
like by the same token, it sounds like both parents worked. They
Yeah.
both seem like just good people. So both kids were they weren't completely sheltered the way you would think, like the crazy homeschool kid. They came and went, and so the kids were given responsibilities. So it wasn't like they were just being locked in a basement all day.
Right.
But yeah, you could tell that was really important. Like their safety was important to the mom, because they were 9 and 10 respectively when this whole thing happened, which is, it's definitely young, but it's kind of on that borderline of when, like, I can't remember when I was first left home alone, but I think it was probably earlier than other kids, because I was always just kind of like a hermit old man, even as a little kid. So they were like, he'll be fine. We'll just put some breadcrumbs on the ground and he'll be fine.
Have
But
like one of those fucking rabbit feeder things of water
yeah,
strapped to the back of
pretty
your
much.
door.
Yeah.
That's funny. I'm trying to picture 6, 7, 8 year old man, little Steve.
Just imagine a smaller kid with the same giant head that you see today.
All right. So
So,
yeah, and the
was there
dad.
anything else you wanted to get into as far as the background, or kind of just get into that day?
No, yeah, I think that sets
Or
the table pretty. I mean, semi-rural town. These are the things that were important to them. It wasn't like super overbearing where like it was a homeschool kind of like mini cult
yeah,
situation. They could
they
still
weren't like
come and go.
Quakers or anything.
Right. And I mean, I can't remember about the brother, but Asha, at least, like, she played basketball and she was athletic. She played point guard. So they did extracurricular things. It wasn't like super locked down, but Yeah, I guess that sets the table for a little bit of the background. So going into the day, so again, it was Valentine's Day, and this was actually, it also happened to be Aisha's parents' wedding anniversary, 12-year wedding anniversary. And I want to touch on that a little bit later too, because I might have a kooky theory about that, or just a curiosity about it. But so she had a game. Was it the same day or was it the day before?
The day before?
Okay. So she had a
Or
basketball. Are you
yeah, well,
confirming?
I think it was the night before.
Okay. Yeah, she had a basketball game the night before and they had lost. I've seen some people offer up like maybe she was like in a really negative headspace and like that could have contributed or been a participant or precipitating factor, like her losing this big game. They lost by a point. She fouled out of the game. She was like one of the stars of the team performer. But I guess that was ruled out because when she came home, her parents didn't make note, and the brother, said she was, pissed that they lost initially, but she got over it pretty quickly within the next day. So then we go into the next day, and Aisha's father, Harold, he actually worked double duty at times, so he worked a second night job. Um, and this is kind of the timeline of him like coming home from his first job, and then there's like a trip to where he would go get Valentine. He was supposed to get Valentine's Day candy and or anniversary last minute kind of thing, where he left the house, and then it's I've seen like 2:30, like he gets home at 11:30, but it's not till 2:30 that he actually checks on the kids and like kisses their head
So this is
goodnight and goes to sleep.
th- so what I read, and I read a pretty decent amount. So I'm confident that I've kind of
You've sussed out the
aggregate.
timeline.
I think so because I definitely saw some conflicting info, uh, but it seemed to come from a place of them not really doing that much research. Which some of those little details come up later, but it sounds like her and her brother shared a room. They both went to bed at like 8, which is crazy early.
Yeah.
But so they go to bed at 8. It sounds like there was a car accident in the neighborhood that knocked the power out.
Mm-hmm.
Sometime after that, power came back on at 12:30. When the power came back on, the dad popped his head in the room to like check on the kids. They were still there asleep, and then he stayed up. And then when he went to bed at 2:30, then
Okay.
he popped back in again one more time on his way to bed to check in on them, and they were still asleep in bed. So it's a really narrow time frame because we know when she was seen, or maybe because there was a possibility that it wasn't even her on the side of the road. But that's my version of a kooky theory. But
Yeah.
so yeah, last seen by dad at 2:30. The brother said that he heard her like moving around in her bed shortly after that, but obviously didn't think anything of it. And then the next time she's spotted is believed to be about 3:45 in the morning. So in that hour and 15 minutes, for some reason, she decides to either pack a bag or she had one pre-packed and just heads out of the house. And it sounds like it was pretty stormy that night with some rain and just
Yeah.
not good running away weather if that's what you were going to do on foot. So far, is there anything that I've missed or anything that you saw that differs from that?
Um, One thing I'm kind of curious about, like the portion about her. I guess she fell asleep first, still in her clothes, on the couch around 6:30. Like she was just tired. She came home from school and I assume was just hanging out reading a book maybe and passed out on the couch at 6:30. And then when the storm hit, the car accident, those two things came together. Power went out at around 8:30, which is what woke her up, and then she stayed up for a little bit, watched TV with her brother and mom until about 9 p.m. when Aquila sent both O'Brien and Aisha to bed.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a little tidbit that I saw, and I bring that up because I think when did she have time to pack this bag, and did she? I mean, she could have done it like maybe she didn't have it pre-packed and she just got it together and then fucking booked it and left at like at that hour between somewhere between 2:30 and 3:45 a.m. Um,
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen a lot about like it was pre-packed, like it was something, and that's unsubstantiated. But I mean, she could have done it the day before too, like premeditated this whole thing, maybe days in advance or weeks. Who knows if she's been groomed? But that part kind of like, I don't know. Like if all indications that her home life and everything was going well, um, like to have it pre-packed, when she would she have done that, like that night? You know, like she gets home from school, she passes out on the couch, powers out, uh, and then she gets sent off to bed. I mean, granted, the bag that they did find didn't have a bunch of shit in it, but we'll get to that point later. But and I think I'm spinning my wheels on that part. But yeah, and it's weird too that like the time that they've honed in on around somewhere in that 3 to 4 area, that's when it really started. The storm had intensified, um, and it was really coming down, and that's when she chose to leave. That's kind of a. It seems like I can think back being 9 years old. Like if I was gonna book it and take off and have a bag packed, I wouldn't do it when it was pissing fucking rain. Um,
Right.
that's just that's a weird detail about this story, but
Well, and
um,
if you saw somebody walking down the road and it's pouring rain, it's going to make it tough to visually identify that person, right? So that's one like, because for some reason I just get this feeling like it's possible that wasn't even her that these witnesses saw, and then when they hear about this missing girl, they're like, oh, that kind of looks like that person that I happened to see.
yeah,
But if it's storming and it's 4 a.m, you're not. I mean, we've talked about it before as far as like how unreliable eyewitnesses can be when in situations like this. It's insane, and I think most people would be really surprised, like if you put them through some scenario and then when it's all over, you ask them like, what color hat was that guy wearing? And your brain has these holes and it tries to fill them, and you're like, oh, I think it was white, and it's like, well, that person didn't even have a hat on. I was able to have you implant a memory in your own head by just
right.
so
And that's stuff that's like asked like immediately, and you try to think back on stuff like 2 years previous, 5 years, then the memory, you do even your brain does even more hole filling on smaller
yeah.
details that add up at the end of the day.
But let's assume it is her walking down the road. She's spotted by. I mean, it's not just one or two. It sounds like there were 3 or 4 motorists walking along the highway between 345 and 415, and it sounds like at least one person turned around because it looks so unusual to have a little girl walking out in that weather in the middle of the night. And this person turned around to go check on her, and she just booked it into the woods.
I
And
saw actually that person, uh, like turned around, drove back, turned around, and drove back like 2 or 3 different times before they like
yeah,
got the gumption to be like, okay, I'm gonna go see what's going on. Um, I thought that was
which
kind of
if I'm that
interesting.
kid, that is super suspicious. It's like, oh, this car has passed me like 3 times.
Yeah, I'd be freaking out. I'd done the same thing as booked it and been like, fuck this. This is like someone trying to snatch me up.
Yeah, and at the point where people are seeing her, it's about a mile and a half or so from her house, which is totally plausible that she could get that far in an hour.
Right.
So then, uh, sounds like the mom wakes up at 5:45. I saw different times, like 5:45 to 6:30, somewhere in there,
Right.
to get the kids ready. Notice she's gone. Call the cops. Cops get there at 6:40, I think is the time that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of the first things that really jumped out at me is they brought dogs, like tracker dogs,
Mm-hmm.
and the dogs couldn't pick up her scent, which, I mean, the first thing that makes me think of is she didn't leave on foot then, if that's the case. But then again, I don't know how tracking gets more and more difficult in bad weather. Like if there's a bunch of rain, could that wash away the scent trail? But I mean,
I
usually
I don't know.
you would assume that if there's no trail, I mean, so they knew it was raining, obviously. If it was known that, oh well, you can't track a person in the rain because the scent gets washed away, it's like they wouldn't even fucking try and bring the dog. So that makes me
Yeah.
think it's possibly more likely that she got in the car, and you can't really track that.
Yeah. And I mean, for them being on the scene that quickly, and I mean, so she had, let's say, anywhere between an hour and a half to 3.5 hour head start. because it's hard to pin down the time. Like, when did she actually step foot out of the house? If she did indeed walk out, was it 3:30? It was sometime between 2:30 and 5:45 or 6 when the mom went to, because that's the last time the dad saw her definitively, and went to bed at 2:30, and the mom woke up at 5:30. So somewhere in between there, she left. Also, too, because her brother said he heard squeaking, or he heard like, the sound of someone tossing and turning in a bed, and that's what he chalked it
Mm-hmm.
up to and just went back to sleep. So that's probably when she left physically, like the initial point. So that time seems to be contested when she actually left. But so
Mm-hmm.
that's where I get, like a 1 to 3 hour ish jump on the cops. And they have helicopters, they have dogs, they have a search party. And I mean, she's only 9 years old. Even if she's like sprinting the whole way, like, I think your search radius still seems pretty um, manageable. But maybe that's a naive opinion. So that was one of the things where I thought, was like, yeah, she had to have, like, it seems more likely that there was some third party that was involved in a transport. That's kind of like my ongoing theory. But
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems reasonable, and so it sounds like they did a news report that night, and when they did, that's when the witnesses came forward and said that that's my cat. Uh, that's when the witnesses came forward and said like, oh yeah, that's we saw her walking down the road, and I saw a couple different places where it said, oh, and then they found some of her belongings at that site, and so I looked into it more, and I guess there was a shed nearby, and the only things they found were a pencil, a marker, and a Mickey Mouse shaped hair bow that were identified as belonging to her. I
mm-hmm.
don't know if maybe that's just like wishful thinking on the parents' part, because those seem like pretty generic items.
Yeah,
It's not like they found her student ID or
or a locket
because
engraved with her name.
yeah, because they also found there was a photograph, right? There was a photograph of a different young black girl that could
Yes,
not be identified. So, I mean, could that be the person that they actually saw walking down the street, or could it be a friend of hers that? Well, I guess if it was a friend of hers, they would probably know her, or the community would recognize.
maybe too. It was like it shouldn't have been ditched, and if we're going with like maybe these are set like some kind of ring, or like a pedophile ring, or a human trafficking ring. Maybe that was like their baseline, like what they were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
if you had it set up and you had another extension, like third party, that was going to be like the bagmen that were going to go out and like, okay, we're going to, like, if they set something up like, oh yeah, you're going to meet me here and we're going to do this, and then they have some, other group of people that are there to intercept and abduct
Mm-hmm.
her, like, hey, that could have been their reference point. Um,
Yeah.
and for
Definitely.
whatever reason, it was discarded, or it flew out of the van or whatever. But yeah, and
Yeah, or
then
maybe she even just temporarily got away and was hiding there before they caught her again. I mean, that's one of the things that makes this story so intriguing for me. Is like there's so many questions that it could be so many different things, and so many just like weird little things that don't make sense.
yeah, and it's baffling too, because it's such like, I mean, it is 20 minutes outside of Charlotte, but I mean, it's a pretty, isolated community, and all the things we've already talked about with her background and stuff, like, just for someone to vanish like completely, and no leads and no nothing. I mean, we do get a couple crumbs between the year 2000 and to the present even, but none of them are actionable or have produced anything. So yeah, just like the sheer like the her just vanishing like that, it is uh, hard, because it just opens up so many questions. Um, there are a couple more, like those crumbs I alluded to. There's a couple of those that come up. Um, I think the first one. Is there anything else before we get to, like? So she's missing. She's gone. And then, I don't want to fill in the gaps for like the first year, but it seems like there was, a pretty good search effort, and that first year, it was like hot topic around the town, and so she's gone.
They got nothing.
Yeah, zero. So then from there, the first thing, the next most meaningful milestone is, so this is somewhere between the summer of 2000 and November of 2000, so 8 to 9 months after. There's an inmate named Baron Ramsey, who is he went to high school with the mom, Asha Degree. So he is an inmate at the local jail. He reaches out to the local sheriff's office. This is Cleveland County, North Carolina Sheriff's Office, and he claims, Baron Ramsey, that the night Asha disappeared, he and another man had been driving back to Shelby, the town, later that night, and were buying drugs in a nearby town called Hickory. So while driving, he said the men hit Asha, who was trying to cross the road. His friend put an unconscious Asha in the back of the truck. He dropped this guy who reported it, Baron Ramsey, at home, and then left with Asha still in the vehicle. Later, Ramsey and his friend dumped Asha's body in Moss Lake. He said law enforcement does not believe the story, and there was no evidence of a hit and run on Highway 18. So this is like the main thoroughfare that she took off on, is Highway 18 in North Carolina. It basically transverses like the state from like perfect like north and south, and they're kind of like on the southern edge of southwestern edge of North Carolina. Additionally, they dragged Moss Lake twice. It was searched by divers, found nothing. According to some other blogs, early on in the investigation, law enforcement dismissed this idea of a hit and run because they found no blood, skid marks, paint chips, any other type of forensic evidence where or in the vicinity of where Asha was last seen. At the time that this inmate, Ramsey, made this confession, he was facing federal charges for bank robbery, and the cops thought his story about Asha was just a way for him to try to get a plea deal and offer up something, curry a little favor. So the cops publicly admitted since that after several months of investigation into this side quest, they don't believe it to be true, and no evidence has ever been found in Moss Lake where they said that they dumped her.
It's such a crazy thing with jailhouse informants or snitches or whatever. It's like these people presumably do have a ton of information related to other crimes.
Right.
But they also have such an incentive to lie. So every once in a while you'll see
reasons too.
Yeah. So when you do see someone who comes forward and they're being asked on the stand or whatever, like, have you been promised anything, or are you getting anything out of this? And they say no. Like, that's pretty damning. But also at the same time, that's not always exactly true, because you could see them making a deal like, I can't promise you anything, but this will look really good if you help us. So they can still honestly answer like, no, I haven't been promised anything, but it's kind of like a wink and a nod. Like, if you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. So it sucks because it's such a potentially valuable source of information that could also just be incredibly tainted and none of it be true. So.
And it sucks too, because in a case like this, something this big, this high of stakes, even if it is some fucker shooting their mouth off, and like, it's like you have to investigate that, because you can't rule it out as a possibility, especially in a case with such a dearth of any kind of evidence or leads or anything, like, you have to jump on it anyway and expend that resource. And it's like, you only know if it's valuable, and if they were telling the truth, if you actually find the hard dirt or someone red-handed or something. So you kind of just got to take that one to the finish line. But I thought that was kind of a funky side story in all of this, but I mean, at the end of the day, it looks like, yeah, just chalk it up to a psychotic person, you know, in an act of desperation, just trying to, like, you know, help his station out. But so I mean, honestly, I didn't do as much research as I would hope, but it's like it's that, and then the only other thing is when they, because this is after this, is when they find her bag. You want to go into like some of
Yep.
that detail?
Yeah, so I think it's about a year and a half after the disappearance. They find her bag at a construction site along that same highway, Highway 18, about 25 miles north of town. And I don't know how exactly they found it because
Yeah, that seems
I
really
saw,
muddy to me too.
and I can't remember. I didn't write it down, but they made it sound like, oh, her bag was like unearthed or discovered, like they were, busting out a foundation or something and found it, or they were digging up something and found, like, they
That's
didn't
right.
make it seem they didn't make it seem like, oh, we were just out in this field getting ready to pour a slab and then we found it. The way it was written made me think like, oh, we somehow uncovered it.
Right. I mean, it was a
And
construction site, so it stands to reason that, yeah, like they were just like, you know, started digging out an area and they clipped like the side of the bag and it like kind of made its way up to the surface and they were like, oh shit, let's look at this.
yeah, and it just gets even weirder from there. So
Yeah.
her bag was like wrapped in a plastic bag, and from what I could see, the only thing in the bag was a Dr. Seuss book and a New Kids on the Block T-shirt, neither of which belonged to her,
Right.
but apparently the bag did. So
Yeah, but the
that
Dr. Seuss book was
that's
checked.
weird.
Yeah, and it's weird too because the Dr. Seuss book was checked out of the library by
Of
someone
her
who,
school.
yeah, of her school, from someone. I guess it's not that weird. So her friend checked it out, you know, and then she borrowed it from her friend. But either way, it wasn't checked out in her name, so it wasn't hers specifically. And then yeah, the shirt was a New Kids on the Block like concert tour '89 shirt. So it's like
Hmm.
back in those days, like you probably couldn't find that on fucking eBay or Etsy. It's like someone who went to that fucking show. That's one thing too that I saw. It's like that seemed like a good piece of evidence to like try to reverse engineer where did that shirt come
Yeah.
from and like the region. When was the last show played like in that like geographical area? Because like I said, yeah, they weren't as ubiquitous as like, you know, people, collectors and shit. You can find anything online now. In the year 2000, it's like, yeah, that was someone that had to have gone to a show, more than likely in a pretty close proximity. So probably like a concert in Charlotte or Raleigh or, you know, the next biggest town. I feel like that seems like with a case with fucking zero evidence, that would be
Hmm.
something to like try and reverse engineer. But I didn't see anything like where they were like, oh yeah, that was her friend so and so's that she came into possession of. That seemed like maybe examine that, you know?
Yeah, because if they're able to determine this book was checked out from that library, like, okay, who checked it out? And that would be a place to start,
Right. And
right?
that's
And I
one you
did.
could easily swat away if it's like, oh yeah, it was her friend Nancy Sue. She let her borrow it a week and a half ago. Oh, okay,
I
that's
It
maybe
must have been a
less.
dead end because I didn't see anything,
Yeah, maybe it was. It's just not fit to print, you know. So
or maybe they
that's
didn't
why there's.
even. Maybe it just had a stamp or something of the library, and they didn't know like who had checked it out or something. I mean, fuck. It's possible it wasn't even her bag. Like just like the Mickey
Yeah,
Mouse hair clip. It's
yeah,
like,
that's the other
oh,
thing.
they probably only made 1 billion of these, so they find a bag that she owned, but it's full of shit that's not hers. I mean,
Right.
what's the most likely scenario, that she swapped all her belongings with somebody else, or that somebody else had a puppy pals or whatever kids are into type of backpack?
Paw Patrol.
Yeah.
That's the shit right now. That's my hell right now. Um,
I do not envy that.
yeah, dude.
So,
Some
but
some
beyond
of
that,
that
it's
shit
like
sucks.
that's the last anything.
And yeah, and it could have been something too, just like let's plant this shit that's not hers at all to like maybe throw off the scent, or I don't know.
I mean, it's
shitty criminal IQ.
You must have a goddamn IQ of 160.
I mean, it's very possible this was a work of a transient like serial killer, and maybe that's who that picture was like a former victim or whatever, and maybe this was just a means of disposing a prior victim's belongings, because the unidentified kid in the picture, like you said, it's only 20,000 people in the community. That's not a very big community, and I'm sure they plastered that picture like, who is this? Because that would be another. I mean, in a case where you have like 0 leads, you would just pound the shit out of the 2 or 3 that you have. So if nobody in that area recognized the kid, like nobody recognized that kid. I mean, I don't like to blame truckers for all serial killers, but it just seems like they're always truckers.
Yeah, that's one thing. I mean, I blame myself for not. Maybe it is out there, but it seemed like that would be notable while researching this case if they had like a side, little side quest about who was that in the picture. But it seemed like, it was. They found a picture of another little black girl that was around the same age, say 8 to 12 years old, but it wasn't her. It wasn't Asha Degree.
Yeah.
Some other kid. Well, who the fuck is that? Like,
yeah.
Let's try and figure that out. What if that's some other girl that has been missing, and there's some kind of linkage there with the area and finding the photo, like, and like I said, maybe that is out there, and I just didn't do my due diligence to plumb those depths, but yeah, and an interesting thing you said too about like the serial killer, like what if that's one of his like creepy ass ways, like he has a specific profile and he only goes after girls that look like this and that in this age frame, and part of his like ritual or whatever is, abducting them, killing them, and then leaving the previous girl's picture. So then maybe he has a picture of Asha Degree, and then the next girl he kills that fits that profile, he offloads Asha's shit, and it just hasn't been found. That's one thing I just thought of, like, right off the dome. Like, yeah, what if he is some creepy serial killer, and that's part of it?
Yeah. I mean, that definitely seems like good material for like a book or a movie, like he's leaving clues, taunting the police. But
although in general, like, I don't see this as like a serial killer thing, because this is primarily a black community, and serial killers it's super rare for that demographic to be a serial killer, and this seemed like a crime.
But who said the killer? Who said the killer had to be black?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, like, in this area, I think it would be very coincidental, or like a stroke of luck, that she just happened to, like, the night that she happened to, like, run away in these conditions, weather and everything, that there's also some serial killer maybe just passing through, or maybe he's a local serial killer even, but that it's still a huge coincidence that, yeah, he happens to be driving around at between 3 and 5 in the morning, and fucking when power's out and all this shit's going on, it's like, oh, perfect, there's a perfect mark I can kill, like, I don't know, it just seems, to me, it's more likely.
That kind of is what they do, though. I mean, they kind of just cruise and look for an easy target,
Yeah, I could see in like a bigger city, though. Maybe not even like a huge ass city like New York or Chicago, but like a bigger city, like a town of like 20,000 people, like a suburban area. It doesn't seem like that would be the hunting ground. And you would have to get how many nights would you drive around in a rural neighborhood between 3 and 5 and you actually see someone walking down the road?
If you're a trucker, you're just putting miles all day, every day. And if you happen to see, if you happen to just come across a wounded gazelle, you strike.
All right.
So
fair.
So there are, let's see, it basically comes down to a few possibilities. And I broke it down into 2 categories. If it was her that was seen by the witnesses, and if it wasn't her. And let me know if you agree, disagree, or have anything you want to add to add to the list.
Yeah.
If it was her that was seen on the side of the road, it could have been a dissociative fugue state. Like we talked about last time.
Yeah.
Or she could be a runaway, which I was reading a guy who works for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children said that most children who run away are at least 12. And like we talked about, she was only 9. That doesn't necessarily exclude it as a possibility. It would just make it very unusual for
or less
a child of her age to run away. Or like we alluded or sort of teased last week, sleepwalking. And just to get into, so
you want to do a quick segue on that?
Yeah, so I had a brief period of like weird sleepwalking, sleep talking, middle of the night behavior, which
what do you mean by that?
It was a very narrow window of time, but it was super fucking weird because it just came out of nowhere. And in hindsight, what me and the missus sort of think is when I used to chew tobacco, and if you're listening to this and you think it's gross, you're wrong. It's awesome. I miss it every day. But when I was quitting, I was chewing nicotine gum, and I didn't even put 2 and 2 together. She did. And then after the fact, we looked it up, and one of the like side effects of nicotine gum is weird like sleepwalking or sleep talking. So
really?
there was a few instances where, you know, I like got up in the middle of the night and would just like do weird shit, like go into the closet, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm going to the bathroom." And so she would like move me to the bathroom. Yeah. So then there was another time where I got up out of bed, walked into the living room, turned on the TV, and then just like stood there looking at, like blankly staring at the TV.
That would creep me the fuck out.
And she came out and was like, "What are you doing?" And I have no memory of this at all.
Fuck.
And so, dude, during this time frame, one of the worst question I ever could hear in the morning would be like, "Do you remember what you did last night?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh God."
That's never
So
good.
then the Everest, the pinnacle, was one night where I had fallen asleep on the couch, just like watching TV, and like fully clothed. And I woke up, got up, grabbed my keys, my wallet, my phone, everything, walked outside. I think I locked the door behind me. She says I didn't, but I don't know what happened. So I walk outside, I start walking down the walkway to our driveway, and it's raining. And I think the rain kind of like half woke me up because like I can only sort of retroactively remember from this point on, nothing before it, but I was still kind of in that sleepwalking state.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm walking down to the driveway, the rain kind of wakes me up. So I'm like, "Oh shit, I need to get back inside." So I go back to the door and I can't figure out how to open the fucking door just because I'm asleep. And so I'm like trying the key, trying the handle, and so I start banging on the door.
Oh,
and
no.
I look over and my neighbor, his light comes on. And so he's like, "What the fuck is going on?" She answers the door in a panic, thinking that I'm like an intruder or something trying to break in.
Did she crack the door and have the chain latch and like she was peeking
we
through?
We don't have the chain, but she opened the door like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And
so she looked through the peephole and saw it was you?
Well, so our peephole is super cloudy. Like it's really hard to see, especially at night. I think when she got up, she reached over and realized I wasn't in bed, and was like, "Okay, this has got to be him doing God knows what." But yeah, super, super bizarre. And then
so what
I
happened?
remembered
She let you in. Like, what are you doing? And then she helped you back to bed, and you went to sleep.
Yeah, and then the next morning it was like, that was weird, and yeah, thank God it didn't really happen too much after that, but it was so weird.
So that how long of a snapshot are we talking about? Like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? with intermittent.
It was like a couple months, I want to say, where it would just happen every once in a while, or like I would talk in my sleep a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The clown has no penis.
What is that?
That's from Step Brothers. That scene where they sleepwalk, and he's in there and he's like making a sandwich, rah rah rah, and then John C. Reilly is like walking around with the mustard bottle, and he's like, "The clown has no penis."
Dude, it's such a shitty feeling to have someone be like, "Do you have any idea what you did last night?"
Yeah.
Oh God, no. I'm sorry.
The not being in control. Yeah, that's freaky.
Okay, so the possibilities, if it wasn't her that was seen walking down the street, is she could have been abducted by a stranger from her room.
Mm-hmm.
She could have been abducted by someone she knew, like a family member or family friend, somebody who she would feel feel trustworthy of going with.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been a friend that was like, "Hey, let's go whatever," in the middle of the night, that she left with and then got separated from, or whatever. But maybe that was one of the pretenses of her leaving, or sleepwalking, fugue state, or ran away.
Yeah, I think kind of reaching a little bit maybe on like, the list of possibilities that could have happened. I know like the word groomer is used a lot these days, but I mean, and specifically like too when it's like tied to a church. So knowing that she was active in the church, I've seen a lot of stuff like, people grasping at straws, or, just wanting to try and understand what could have happened. To me, more than like a crime of opportunity, to me, it seems like it was more premeditated, and there was an outside party, like someone old enough who could drive, that made away with her. And she was so smart, and she was old enough that I think it would have had to been someone that she had at least a modicum of trust and or respect in.
Yeah.
And like this wasn't like this was maybe it wasn't thought out from the beginning, but it was something that developed, and it was something that had, a minimum amount of planning that went into this, because of all the circumstances we talked about, like the power going out and the fucking rain. Like I think that only helped, like whoever it was that, like those conditions. And but I think it was definitely planned, so that person couldn't have known that it was going to play out this way. She was just going to leave quietly, quickly, 3, 4 in the morning. We're going to go here and do this, whatever it is. And then people want to speculate. I don't think it's meaningful to speculate on whether she's dead or alive. I mean, my gut would probably be like, yeah, she's probably dead. But I don't think that's really meaningful, because it's like she disappeared, and like you need to figure out what happened to her first, then fixate on, is she alive or dead? But yeah, I guess anyway, the long story short, that's my, I guess, gut feeling, the way that my mind rationalizes it. What do you think what's your heart tell you about this one?
Yeah, no, I think you're on the right track as far as her leaving the house, because there wasn't any sign of forced entry, so it's not like somebody jimmied her window open and snatched her or anything, at least that I know of. So she voluntarily left the house. I think that much is known. I think the dogs not being able to track her scent indicates that she got in a vehicle of some kind. And yeah, I think you're right. I think it was like a pre-planned thing, whether it was a friend, family friend, or like you said, somebody known to her that she trusts that was like, "Oh, hey, let's go check out this thing I want to show you, but we have to do it in secret for whatever reason." And I mean, kids are kind of dumb and easily influenced. So like, imagine if it was like a basketball coach that was like, "Hey, I want to show you this thing, but we need to leave really early in the morning to go there, so don't tell your parents, and I'll pick you up, and I'll have you back before school," or whatever. And there's no way of knowing without I mean, we're kind of spoiled these days where everyone has a cell phone and there's Ring cameras everywhere. So you can sort of track. Like, imagine if that happened today. It's like, okay, well, 4 of her neighbors have Ring cameras,
Yeah.
so we'll see which direction she went, and then just kind of follow and put it together. But this really is just like just vanished into thin air.
Yeah, and it's yeah, it this day and age, you know, like even though it's been 22 years, it's like look how far technology has come, you know, like to where
Yeah.
it would have been a lot easier to at least get a better head start or start on the case, and it would have been that much harder for someone to try and get away with it. They would have had to
Yeah.
plan like maybe after a basketball game or a function or something where there's a lot of people and you can easily but yeah, this one's frustrating because there's like it's just because like you know tons of kids and everything go missing every year, but like a large percentage. I'm not gonna offer one, but I know it's a large percentage are found pretty quickly and within a short amount of time. And then there's these outliers like this that it's just like nothing and there's no leads or anything. So it's frustrating. So and
I was
I don't
trying to
want to.
look up. I was trying to look up the FBI stats for like missing children
Mm-hmm.
and how many are found either alive or dead, and how many are just never found. I was having a really hard time finding the info, but one of the numbers I found for I think 2020 was like 300,000 kids or something crazy were reported missing. Half of those were unauthorized parent like custody issues where like
Mm-hmm.
mom took them longer than so wipe away half because I don't really count that as like an abduction.
Yeah, those are just
And it
like
said
fucking surface level like
like
chicken shit.
custody disputes.
Yeah.
So of those remaining missing quote unquote cases, it was like 98%
Yeah.
the kids back home, and it's fine.
Yeah, I didn't feel comfortable enough throwing percentages, but I saw they were definitely in the high 90s. I even saw
Yeah.
99% and stuff like that. So, um, I guess one other little tidbit that I mean it's frustrating too because it goes fucking absolutely nowhere. But I guess in uh, 2014, the U.S. Marshal Service arrested a man named Donald Ferguson for the 1990 murder of Shalonda Poole, and I guess her case had like eerily similar circumstances and similarities to Aisha's case, and I guess a lot of people in the region think that Ferguson is the prime suspect in Aisha's disappearance. However, they've never made any definitive linkage between Donald Ferguson and Aisha's disappearance. And then 2 years later, 2016, the FBI released information that was generated from a previous 2015 cold case reinvestigation. They got a couple tips saying that Aisha may have been seen getting into a green uh, early 1970s model Ford Thunderbird or Lincoln Mark IV with rust around the wheel wells. The FBI publicly announced the potential lead in 2016, released images of the vehicle models and the variants. The FBI said they're looking for anyone who knew someone with that type of car during that time period. Still to this day, the car is a vehicle of interest and which was thought to be occupied twice the night Aisha disappeared. But then that's it, you know. So it's
Yeah.
getting these
Just
little
another.
nuggets like 5-10 years apart, and it just what do you do with that, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah. There's a lot of stuff out there online. People go a little bit farther on the speculation line, and you know, some people have some really tight timelines and like really examine this thing. But I mean, she's still missing, so uh, just trying to bring awareness to it rather than like this isn't like an exploitative kind of like ooh this is really weird and I'm like
Mm-hmm.
looking into it. It's like it sucks like
Yeah.
that there's just nothing and she just vanished like this. So yeah, if you're interested in this case, I mean it's still active. They still her family and that community they still do a memorial walk every Valentine's Day. There's a $50,000 reward for any information leading to her being found. So yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's really sad because it's just ongoing. There's no closure. I mean, it's got to be pretty shitty to lose your child, but it's got to be even shittier to not know if you have.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it takes the sting away, but I mean, it's got to give you, whatever that closure means for that person. It's got to mean something. It's got to be better than, because like I can only imagine like, tying yourself in knots. Like maybe you can like live with it, but then like, every fifth day or, every third day or something, you're just gonna be up in knots. Like, what if she's still alive? And she just moved on, and she got away from her captors, and she carved out her own life, and she's too afraid to come back, and fear of reprisal. Like somebody knows where she is, and like, that's just one tangent you could take as a parent, like thinking like.
Yeah.
There's all this time that we've missed out on, and what if she is still alive? Like that kind of shit could just fucking eat you alive. Like holding on to that hope of what if they are still alive, and there's still
well,
a
and
chance.
I read an interview with the mom. I don't know if it was that same one from 2013 or if it was one after that, but I mean, she said that she thinks she's still alive, which has got to be.
I can understand wanting to hold on to that hope, like, but on the other hand too, I can also understand like trying to give yourself closure and say no, they probably didn't make it, just so you can like function in everyday life, like as a coping mechanism. So I can see both sides of it for sure, but either way, I was watching a thing online, and like they asked that question, what is it better to know or not know, and keep that hope alive, or most people said yeah, I want to know, at least when it happened, and like so I can come to grips with that and try to overcome that. But all right, well, yeah, that's Asha Degree. Look it up if you want to learn more. There's plenty out there, and it's still ongoing. And if you guys have any questions for us about this or anything else, you can hit us up at our email is wax@waxingtheporpoise.com, or reach out to us on one of our socials. Instagram is Waxing the Porpoise, Twitter at Waxing the Porp. Did we not key in on the what did you call it? That was super slick. We need to keep that going.
It was the what did I call it? Like the autistic phrase that pays or something?
Yeah. That pays. Did we touch on it and I just missed it?
No, we did not. You did not say it. It was in reference to. It sucks that this has bombed the last 2 weeks, and
hey, let's keep trying.
But I was hoping it would come up when we were talking about how even though the kids were kind of sheltered, they sort of came and went.
Oh, I know. Because I almost fucking used it too. Latchkey kids. Yes.
I wrote it down on the paper.
There was I can think back to, I remember there was a specific point where I was in my head before it. I was like, I'm gonna use Latchkey Kid, and I didn't. That's awesome.
You love phrases.
Yeah, I do. Oh man, I do love a good phrase.
Welcome to the Colloquial Corner.
I forgot one. So
oh, nice.
Going springboarding right into that. There is one today I had forgotten about. This is an oldie but goldie. It was hotter than fuck today and super humid. And I was mowing the lawn. I hit the front yard first because it's the biggest chunk, and it took a bite out of my ass. And I sat down, and my daughter came out, and my wife. They were doing a little project in the garage, and I didn't have a filter on at all because I was just like, I felt like I was entering the first stages of heat exhaustion or heat stroke.
Yeah.
and I was like, God damn, it's hotter than a snake's ass in a wagon out there. That's one I have incorporated into my lexicon from our mutual friend Barker. I like it
like a
because
whore in church.
It doesn't make sense, but it does if you think about it. Because like snake skin, I feel like it's like rubber, like it's vulcanized, like it's like a tire. So if it was in a wagon that's just hot as shit and like just dry, like overbearing sunlight, you'd just be cooking. So hotter than a snake's ass in a wagon. That's this week's
I like
colloquial corner. Yeah, I'll try to come up with something more topical for the next episode. That's awesome, Latchkey Kid. I swear to God, I almost used it too.
I know it. I know it.
That's one I didn't learn about. Like, I always heard that term, and I was like, what does that mean? Like, when I was probably like 32, like I still didn't know what it meant, and I was like, oh, hey, I was one of those.
Yeah.
As
it's definitely a fun phrase.
The 90s, the mid 90s were. Yep. Fuck, there was one other thing. Oh, yeah, before we leave off too, I wanted to show you this shit. I'm thinking about turning it into a bump. This is just fucking funny.
It's not the, can I guess?
Yeah.
Is it the video of the Las Vegas smoke shop stabbing by any chance?
No.
Ah, okay.
What is that one? Is that the one where the big dude gets his shirt ripped and he starts getting tased and he just wears it like a fucking sweater and he's got like a cool 100 in his hand that he's smoking.
Oh no.
And he's getting actively tased by the cops and he's like, "I'll get you, bitch."
No, but that is great, and I just recently rewatched that clip.
Dude, I love that one.
So funny. This one is I wouldn't even call it like surveillance camera because it's like a low angle. So it must be like a Ring or a Nest camera.
Mm-hmm.
And so these two guys come into like a smoke shop, like a vape, like a cigarette city type of shop.
Mm-hmm.
And they're wearing ski masks, but they look like stupid ski masks, not like bank robber ski masks.
Not like.
And so the guy behind the counter is like, "What are you guys doing with those masks?" And they kind of are talking back and forth. And one of the guys grabs like a tip jar or something, and the guy's like, "I mean, you can take the money, but can I have the coins? Because I need the coins for my tray or whatever." One guy jumps over the counter and he moves over to him, and so he jumps back. The other guy jumps over the counter and the clerk just starts stabbing this guy.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yes. Dude.
And the guy's like, I'm dying.
Yeah. Dude, he stabbed him at least 8 times, and one of them, like, I'm pretty sure he had to have gotten a good artery.
Well, the guy lived, so he didn't hit anything. He didn't hit anything vital.
Damn.
But when he first started going at him, I thought he was just doing those like pussy little rabbit punch, like, you know, like with the bottom of your fist.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he had a knife in his hand. Yeah. And yeah, the guy, when he's like, I'm dying.
That's like that. What case is that from the Sword and Scale? I'm sorry about that. Okay, yeah. No, so this is not crime related. This shit's just really what is funny. This? So this is like a dude like he's like emptying the cherry from like a blunt out into like a cup with a bunch of ash and like bits of like Swisher Sweet paper, and it catches on fire, and he looks fucking zonked, and he's trying to put it out with a pen, and he's also trying to sing along to a Tom Petty song.
Wow, a lot going on here.
Yeah, just hear me out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The boy, baby.
What? It's funny because I feel bad for the people listening because they probably have no idea what's going on. I watched it and I have no idea what the fuck is going on.
Oh fuck! I'll put the link in the show notes, dude.
Yeah,
like once or
sure.
twice a week.
Yeah.
I watch that just to like it does the trick every time. I'm like, okay, I feel better now.
I don't know what's happening.
Similar to the she came down in a bubble, Doug.
Oh man. Yeah.
Dude,
It
that
is
thing
so good.
that thing takes on way more significance after you told me, like, look at the fat guy take his knife out, and he actually opens that bitch up, he flicks it
Yeah.
open like he's gonna go stab his friend.
That might be my favorite thing ever on the internet. I've watched that video so many fucking times.
Yeah, that's gotta be top 3, top 5. Yeah, that one's great. Do you know what the
And
title is?
what was her sister?
Listeners? Yeah.
Huh?
Do you know what the title of that is?
Oh god. No, I think you could type in any number of phrases and find it, like Bubble, Doug,
Yeah.
Wicked Witch of the East, bro.
The dude getting pissed. They're playing like a trivia game, and they're getting pissed about a fucking detail from Yellow Brick Road. What the fuck is that? Dorothy.
Wizard of Oz?
Wizard of Oz, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Wizard of Oz question about a princess in a trivia game that could have turned into murder.
So funny. So fucking funny.
Yeah, if you've been living under a rock and you don't know that one, just give it a Google.
You have any ones? I'd like to see you incorporate them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
It was a fun
Anything
one.
else you want to share?
No.
All right. I think we should pivot to a movie.
Yeah.
For a little palate cleanser action.
Yeah.
We don't need to decide right now, but I guess maybe we can look through it and see if there's anything. Has there been anything recently that has been on your radar?
Not really. No.
All right. Are you as excited as I am to kick off the horror movie September and October?
I'm excited for fall. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I hear ya. What were the Halloween flicks? I think I have them listed here that I wanted to talk about. Have you ever seen 1408 with John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson?
Yeah, I think I have. Isn't that like a Stephen King adaptation?
Based on a Stephen King short story. He's in like a
think I
hotel.
have.
There's weird shit that happens, and
maybe, I don't know.
all right, we'll
I think
call
I'm
it
just
a soft
familiar.
guess.
Yeah, I think I'm familiar with it, but I don't know if I ever watched it.
All right. Well, I prefer to go into stuff blind here for Halloween. So here's some other. Have you ever seen Mothman Prophecies? Richard Gere? You haven't? Okay.
Nope.
That's a fucking banger. We're watching that one for sure. Have you ever seen The Scout's Guide to the Apocalypse?
Nope.
Awesome. You haven't seen Phantasm 2? We're definitely doing Phantasm 2 for sure. Have you ever seen Night Watch with Ewan McGregor, Josh Brolin? Okay.
Nope.
That's a good one. I'm thinking too. We're gonna go real weird too. There's a movie called Versus. If anyone's seen Versus, it's a Japanese flick, and it's like a weird like zombie like. It's out there. It's super weird, but I think that'll be a good one too. We might have a special guest host for that one too. So, yeah. So if anybody's got any suggestions for like some deep cut, like hidden gem, kind of Halloween centric, spooky horror stuff, we're gonna be doing for the entire months of September and October, nothing but horror movies. So send us your recommendations that kind of fit that rubric, as it were. Let's see. Latchkey Kid. Yep. I'm going to have to slip that in through the course of the next week more than I would have now that it's front of mind. You never seen The Burbs, right?
No.
Burbs is pretty good. A lot of people have covered it, but I still feel like I think that would be a fun one to talk, especially for a first timer. Yeah, the rest of these. I think that'd be a good. It's not a straight horror film, but I think that'd be a good lead-in too. So, how about let's do the Burbs?
Sure.
You down?
Yeah.
We got,
Where's it? Where can it be found?
Where can we find this flick? And I think it's got a lot going for it too, because it's got Tom Hanks. I think you're a fan at least, aren't you?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, between Gump and
yeah,
that thing you do, I feel like you can do no wrong, really.
Yeah, I kind of just get this like dickhead vibe from him. I mean, he's a good actor, but
yeah, I can see that too. He probably is a dick. Fuck.
Yeah.
Looks like the only place you can get this is Voodoo for rent for $2.99. It's probably out of print or something, or it's like it's got so much weird shit that it's probably a nightmare to try to get it on a streamer with all the rights and issues and crap. But yeah, you can rent it on Voodoo for $2.99. This is from 1989. It's a banger for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'll figure it out.
One last aside too. Do you have Hulu?
Yeah.
Have you seen the new Predator movie, Prey?
No.
Dude, watch it. It's fucking badass.
I haven't seen any of them, so.
What? You haven't seen any Predators?
Yeah, we talked about that. Like.
No, did we? Okay, you gotta watch the first one. For sure, with Arnold. That's prime Arnold, dude. And then the second one has its detractors, but you got crazy Gary Busey and Danny Glover in Predator Deuce. It's Predator in the City.
Oh, God.
It's dope.
Sounds awful.
Danny Glover calls the Predator a pussy face. He's all bloody. He's on like a rooftop. He's like, "Yo, move, pussy face." Just for that line alone, you gotta watch it. I mean...
Sounds really good.
You don't need to watch all that shit. You could watch Prey right now. It's fucking badass. So it's like it takes the Predator like back into like the 1700s and like this Native American tribe and these key. This chick goes fucking. Chick and her brother are fucking badass, dude. So good. God, I can't believe you've seen 0 Predator films. Okay. Well, yeah, I think that's going to do it for us. Thank you for listening.
Have derailed.
Yes. Yeah. Well, at least you didn't overreact about it. Yeah, thanks for listening, tuning in. Catch us next week. We'll be talking about the Burbs. And take her easy. I'll see you when I'll see you, and I'll see you later.
Take luck.
Somebody is going to take that thing and stuff it right up your ass.